I never saw the man who pulled me out of the crash. But a week later, he showed up at my door and said my name like he'd known me his whole life. Let me ask you something. What would you do if someone saved your life and then acted like you owed them something? Because that's exactly what happened to me. My name is Amara Enquin. I'm 29, and until that night, my life was predictable, structured, safe. I liked it that way. No chaos, no surprises, no people getting too close, especially not after everything that happened with my family and my brother Daniel. But that night, everything broke. It started with rain, the kind that comes out of nowhere, heavy, blinding, loud enough to drown out your thoughts. I remember gripping the steering wheel tighter, squinting through the windshield, telling myself I was only 10 minutes from home. Then, headlights. Too close. Too fast. And then, impact. A violent crushing sound, metal folding in on itself, glass exploding, my body snapping forward, and then, silence. Not complete silence, no. The kind of silence where your ears are ringing so loudly, it feels like the world is screaming at you. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe properly. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how it ends. And then, arms, strong, urgent, pulling me, dragging me out of the wreck like my life depended on it, because it did. I never saw his face, but I heard his voice. Low, steady, focused. Stay with me. Don't close your eyes. That was the last thing I remember before everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. Broken ribs, concussion, burns. The doctor told me something I can't forget. If that man hadn't pulled you out when he did, you wouldn't be here. But here's the part that didn't make sense. No one knew who he was. No name, no report, no witness statement. He just disappeared. And I should have felt grateful, right? But I didn't, because something about that voice felt familiar, and I couldn't explain why. A week later, I was back home, alone, trying to convince myself to move on. Then the doorbell rang. Late, unexpected. I opened the door slowly, and there he was, alive, real, looking straight at me. And before I could say a word, he spoke. Amara, you don't remember me, do you? And in that moment, I realized this wasn't a stranger. Before we continue with this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for updates. He said my name like he'd been saying it for years, not like someone who just pulled me from a wreck. I froze at the door. You ever get that feeling when something is off, but you can't prove it yet? That was exactly it. The man standing in front of me looked calm. Too calm. Like this wasn't a surprise visit. Like this was something he had been planning. I'm sorry, I said slowly, gripping the edge of the door. Do I know you? He didn't answer right away, just studied my face. Then finally, you used to. That didn't help. His name was Elias Emba, 32. And yes, he was the one who pulled me out of the car. No hesitation, no doubt. I got there before the fire spread. You were still conscious, barely. Something about the way he said it, precise, controlled, it sent a chill down my spine. So why didn't you stay? Why didn't you tell anyone? A pause. Then, it wasn't the right time. Not the right time? Who says that after saving someone's life? I should have shut the door. I should have called someone, but instead, I let him in. And that's when things got worse. At first, it was small things. He glanced around my living room and said, "You still arrange your books by color." I blinked. What? Then he added, almost casually, You used to do that in your old house, too, the one on Mala Street. My stomach tightened. I hadn't told him that. I hadn't told anyone that in years. Okay, I said slowly. Did you look me up or something? He gave a faint smile. Not amused, not warm, just knowing. You had a dog growing up, Max, golden fur. You cried for days when he died. Now my heart was racing. How do you know that? I asked. He didn't hesitate this time. Because I was there. There? Where? My mind started digging, old memories, blurred faces, pieces that didn't quite fit together. A teenage boy, quiet, always in the background, but every time I tried to focus on it, it slipped away. Then he leaned forward slightly. You've always been good at forgetting things that hurt you, Amara. That hit harder than it should have. I stood up immediately, defensive. Okay, stop. Who are you really? Silence. Then finally, I told you, you used to know me. My chest tightened. Then tell me, I pushed. How? Another pause, longer this time, and just before he walked out the door, he turned back and said something that made my blood run cold. There's something about that night you still don't understand. A beat. That crash wasn't an accident. That crash wasn't an accident. Let that sink in for a second, because it didn't sink in for me. Not at first. I actually laughed. Nervous, disbelieving, the kind of laugh you let out when something is so insane your brain refuses to process it. What are you talking about? Of course it was an accident. It was raining, I lost control. No, Elias cut in. Calm, certain. You didn't lose control. And just like that, the air in the room changed. Have you ever had someone say something so confidently it makes you question your own memory? Because suddenly I wasn't so sure anymore. That night replayed in my head. The headlights, the angle, the speed. Too fast, too direct, like it was aimed at me. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up the accident report. At first glance, normal, just like I remembered. But then, the details started to crack. There was mention of a second vehicle. Brief, barely explained. No plate number, no follow-up, just gone. Then I checked traffic cameras. Missing footage. Right at the intersection where it happened. Coincidence? Or something worse? The next morning, I went to the police. And you already know how that went. Trauma can affect memory, they told me. It's common to misinterpret events after a near-death experience. So basically, they thought I was imagining it. By the time I got home, I was angry, confused, and if I'm being honest, scared. And that's when Elias came back. Like he knew exactly when I'd start questioning everything. You went to the police, he said, stepping inside without waiting for permission this time. I didn't even ask how he knew. I just snapped, if you know something, stop playing games and tell me. He watched me carefully, then said something that made my stomach drop. You were already watching me before the crash. Silence. What? I whispered. I was following you, he said, for days. Now my fear turned into something sharper. You were stalking me? No, he said firmly. I was trying to protect you. Protect me? From what? From who? And then he said the name I hadn't heard in years. Your brother, Daniel. Everything inside me froze. No, I said immediately. Don't do that. Don't bring him into this. But Elias didn't back down. He's not who you think he is. I shook my head. I don't even talk to him anymore. Whatever this is, it has nothing to do with me. Elias reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder. Look at this, he said. Inside, phone records, transactions, documents, and one thing that made my hands start to shake, an insurance policy. In my name, recently updated, large payout, beneficiary, Daniel. My voice barely came out. No, this doesn't mean anything. Elias stepped closer. It means, he said quietly, you were never supposed to survive that crash. My heart started pounding so hard I could barely hear anything else. I looked up at him, terrified. Why? Why would you risk your life for me? And that's when he said it, the one thing that changed everything. Because I owe you more than you remember. Because I owe you more than you remember. That sentence stayed with me. Not just the words, but the weight behind them. So I asked him again. This time, no fear, no hesitation. What do you mean? And for the first time since I met him, Elias hesitated. You ever notice that? When someone who's been completely in control suddenly pauses? That's when you know the truth is coming. I didn't want to do this like this, he said quietly, but you need to remember. Remember what? He took a breath, then sat down like he was preparing to reopen something buried. Years ago, he started, when we were teenagers, I used to come around your house. And just like that, something shifted in my mind. A flicker, a face I couldn't quite see. You were always in the background, observing everything, especially your brother. Daniel. The name felt heavier now. What does he have to do with you? I asked. Elias looked straight at me. Everything. Then he told me. Back then, Daniel wasn't just reckless. He was involved in things he shouldn't have been. Small at first, then bigger, riskier, illegal. And Elias? He got pulled into it, not by choice. He was younger. He didn't have options. Your brother did. I felt my chest tighten. No, Daniel wasn't. He was, Elias cut in. And one night, everything went wrong. And that's when it hit me. Not queerly, not fully, but enough. A night. Voices raised. Fear. And Elias bleeding. My breath caught. I remember, I whispered. Barely. But it was there. You found me, Elias said softly, after your brother left me there. My heart dropped. Left him? You could have walked away, he continued, but you didn't. You helped me. You called for help. You stayed. The room felt smaller. I didn't know. You saved my life, he said. Silence. Heavy. Real. And now, he added, I returned the favor. Everything started connecting. Daniel's anger, his distance, the silence that followed that night. He didn't just leave Elias, he blamed me for what happened after, which meant I was never just his sister. I was a liability. And now, I was worth more to him, gone. My stomach twisted. So he tried to kill me? I said, my voice barely steady. Yes, Elias didn't sugarcoat it. A cold, brutal truth. And just as I was about to process that, my phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? A pause. Then a voice I hadn't heard in years. Calm, familiar, terrifying. Amara? My blood ran cold. You shouldn't have survived. You shouldn't have survived. That's what my brother said to me. Not angry, not emotional, just factual, like he was stating something that had already been decided. And in that moment, everything became clear.
Not in pieces, not in fragments, all of it. The crash wasn't random. The missing footage wasn't a coincidence. The second vehicle, that was intentional. Daniel planned it. Elias helped me record the call, every word, every pause, every threat. And when Daniel realized I wasn't alone, that I wasn't as vulnerable as he thought, his tone shifted. But it was too late. Within 48 hours, the police reopened the case, this time with evidence. The insurance policy, the financial records, the call, and, most importantly, connections to the driver who hit me. Daniel was arrested 3 days later. I didn't go to see him at first. I couldn't, because how do you stand in front of someone who shares your blood and accept that they tried to erase you? But eventually I did. He looked smaller behind the glass, not powerful, not untouchable, just a man who made a choice. He said, I needed a way out. No apology, no remorse. You were the only asset left. Asset, that's what I was to him. Not a sister, not family, just something to cash in. And strangely, that hurt less than I expected, because by then, something inside me had already shifted. The truth didn't break me. It freed me. Daniel was charged. Fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. His world collapsed fast. Friends disappeared, business ties cut off, and every lie he built his life on unraveled in public. The fallout spread through the family, too. Some tried to defend him, others cut him off completely. As for me, I stopped answering calls. Healing doesn't happen in noise. It happens in silence. Weeks passed. Physically, I recovered. Emotionally, it took longer. But I wasn't alone. Elias didn't hover, didn't push. He just stayed present when I needed it. One evening, sitting across from him, I finally asked, "Why didn't you tell me who you were from the start?" He gave a small, honest smile. "Because I needed you to remember on your own. Not because I told you, but because it mattered." And he was right, because now I understood everything. Not just what happened, but who stood beside me when it mattered most. The man I thought was a stranger was the one who came back for me. And the one I thought would always protect me was the one I needed protection from. That's the truth. And for the first time in a long time, I'm finally at peace.